A Boy and His Blob on the Nintendo Wii is actually a remake of an NES game called A Boy and His Blob Trouble on Blobalonia. Unfortunately, they dropped that awesome subtitle from this game, but if you have played that original, then you know what this game is all about. You play as a boy who apparently has no fear as you see an object hurtle down from the stars. You run over to it, discover a blob, and instantly assume it must love jelly beans. By feeding it jelly beans, it transforms into all kinds of different things that help you explore the world, including ladders, balloons, little pitfalls in the ground, all kinds of stuff. And that forms the basis of this game. WayForward set out to recreate that puzzle platformer of the NES, but bring it back here on the Wii with literally the most adorable graphics and visuals I've ever seen, while still retaining some of the head-scratching puzzles that made the original game deviously challenging, but very rewarding. As I browse through the library of games to play, I often pass on this one because I'm just not feeling that puzzle nature. But this time, I'm really glad that I stopped on it because I've been wanting to play it for a long time. I do remember playing the original NES game, and while that game was incredibly challenging, it might have just been tossed up to me being very young. But this game is pretty straightforward. A lot of times in the early levels, the game will actually tell you kind of what to do in the form of these signs that are all over. So if you see a pit and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do here, just make sure you feed the blob the certain jelly bean that turns them into a parachute, and you can jump down easily. As the game progresses, these hints are often omitted, so you have to use your own imagination, but for the most part, you probably know what to do. The game isn't very challenging, but it does offer up a lot of creative ways to solve puzzles. For example, there might be some enemies in your way, so you might just want to make a ladder to go to the higher level, or you could also use the pitfall jelly bean, throw your blob down there, and have the enemy fall through that hole and land in spikes. Then you can jump down and progress easily. There's not too many of these chances to get creative, and I kinda wish the game did offer this. But keeping a tradition, that is what I remember the original game being like. You really only had one choice to do something, and if you didn't get it right, you would probably have to start over. So they got that part right. Scattered across each level are 3 treasure chests, and if you collect all of them, when you return back to your hub world, whether it be your treehouse or your actual family home, you'll unlock a piece of artwork or a cool new thing to look at. And by going to it, you can unlock what is essentially a challenge level, where you use the same ideas that you had just used, but in a much more devious setting. While the main game seems to offer little platforms to stand on and think about things, in these challenge levels you actually have to move kind of fast or think on your toes so you don't get hit by an enemy or fall all the way off a cliff and miss something that you really need. As someone who easily got through the game's main stages, these challenges were probably the best part. They offered a lot more variety to the puzzles and really made me think before I just jumped in and did something. Also really cool are the game's boss fights. There's only a few throughout this relatively short game. They offer up a very different way to defeat enemies. So the very first boss you come across is this sort of blobby snake thing, and you have to hit its head. In order to do so, you need to use your blob in creative ways to make this creature come out so you can actually attack it. Once you find out the strategy, it's pretty easy, but getting there can be kind of tough. It took me a few tries to figure it out, but once I did, and I was able to flow through that game really fast, it was very rewarding to see this blob run through really fast and defeat this cool enemy. I don't know how this boy isn't scared because I would be scared shitless, but it was pretty fun. I would say it is impossible to talk about this game without mentioning the visuals. They are, without a doubt, the best feature of the entire thing. Everything has this sort of almost hand-drawn Saturday morning cartoon feel to it. Even down to the enemies, you can tell that they're evil just because they have these naturally evil yellow eyes and things like that. It adds a lot of character and charm to the game, which is only accentuated by the relationship between the boy and the blob. Even though they just met, they have an enduring relationship that best friends just have. To put it into perspective, there is an entire button that is solely used just to hug the blob.
Come on. Come on.
And is that not the most precious thing you have ever seen in any video game? A Boy and His Blob isn't too hard to find on the Wii, and a lot of people do consider it a hidden gem for the entire system. So if you do see it out there, it is worth a pickup. I would highly recommend it to anyone that wants a lighthearted puzzle game, or someone who just likes the artistic style of game. Kind of like an indie game where the emphasis is more on the story and visuals than the actual gameplay.
Wait.
And now while that gameplay is lacking overall, it is kind of easy and simple to get through. What is there is really fun. You'll have a good time for a few solid hours, then after that you'll probably be done with this. It's not a very long game, but what is there is pretty fun. And if you do play those bonus missions like I said earlier, you can extend the life almost twofold if you get everything in every single level. I was not disappointed with my time in this game. I will likely go back to it and try to finish it up. I'm hoping that the later stages will add even more variety, and I really want to see the rest of those boss fights. They were really cool, and they incorporated a very creative way to use the blob's abilities. I wish they did that more in the main game, but I'm not going to complain. For what is here, it's a pretty fun game, and it is worth your time for any Wii collector.
Whoa!